First conference by Foreign Minister Hayashi will begin. Minister, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. I have one point to report to you. Decision has been made to provide to the 5 countries where demand for COVID-19 vaccine has been confirmed, namely Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, Nigeria, and Cameroon, a total of 2.2 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccines produced in Japan through the COVAX facility once coordination has been completed, a total of 2.2 million doses. This will be the first ever provision of vaccines to sub-Saharan Africa from Japan. And as soon as preparations are complete, the vaccines will be transported. Most recently, we've directly provided 2.7 million doses of vaccines on additional basis to Indonesia. And this time, we've also decided to provide 1.7 million doses of vaccines additionally to Vietnam on direct provision basis. And today, the transport will begin. And including these provisions, a total of 42 million doses of vaccines would have been supplied by Japan. In order to contain COVID-19, it is important to promote fair access to and penetration of vaccines on a global basis. We will continue the provision of vaccines by taking into consideration the status of vaccine production and infection, as well as use within Japan, infection in various countries and regions, and demand for vaccines. Those of you who have questions, please raise your hand, proceed to the microphone, identify yourself and affiliation, and proceed to the question. Miki-san. Miki of Nikkei. I have a question on Ukraine. MOFA decided to increase the travel advisory and warning to level 3. What is the perception of Japan regarding Ukraine? Are you going to consider raising the level further to evacuation recommendation? And you've also provided spot information to Japanese residing in Ukraine. Have you any updates on those who have departed Ukraine thereafter? At the moment, we are monitoring the buildup of Russian troops near the border with Ukraine, and tension has been elevated. The situation is very precarious. Countries are continuing diplomatic efforts, but at the same time, there's also the likelihood that the situation may change drastically quickly. Regarding embassy personnel, we are taking every measure possible to ensure the safety of Japanese citizens, and based upon the situation locally, we will continue to take appropriate measures and responses. Further, on further raising of the warning level, regarding the Japanese citizens, we are strongly calling for use of commercial flights to depart the country as quickly as possible. We will continue to monitor the situation closely to ensure the safety of Japanese citizens.
Yuza-san, please. I'm Yuda from Yomiuri newspaper. The eruption in Tonga occurred, and more than 1 week has passed. What is this aid situation from the Japanese government, and what is the plan for the future? Between Japan and Tonga, including the imperial family and the royal family bondage, we have a very good relationship of friendship. And for the social and economic development of Tonga, we have been assisting Tonga, including the COVID-19 measures. As to the swift support to Tonga, including the Prime Minister, Tonga government has given us great appreciation and evaluation to Japan. That has been based on the foundation that we have cherished between Tonga and Japan for a long time. Tonga is the indispensable partner for Japan. And for the early restoration of Tonga, Japan would like to continue providing strong support. Next question, please.
I have a follow-up question. Note of Yomiuri newspaper. You said indispensable partner, including Tonga. The Southern Pacific nations are under the influence of China at the moment. What is the recognition of the Japanese government regarding that situation? Tonga included the Southern Pacific regions as well as the Pacific Island countries are traditionally very close to Japan. They have been close partners. They are partners with whom we share basic values, including democracy and rule of law, and they are indispensable partners for the realization of a free and open Pacific. In the Pacific, last year at the Pacific Island Leaders meeting, we announced the Pacific Bond Kizuna policy, and through the 9 rounds of Palm Summit for over 20 years, we have been fostering the Kizuna Pacific Bond with the Pacific Island countries. We will continue to engage in the strengthening of ties with the Pacific Island nations. Next question, please.
Oki-san, please. NHK Aoki. About U.S. forces Japan infection increase. September last year in the U.S. base, there was relaxation of the prevention measures, and the MOFA grasped the situation in December. 2 years ago, between the U.S. and Japan, the quarantine system in Japan and the U.S. quarantine system should be consistent. That was agreed upon. However, that promise has not been observed. With the spread of the Omicron strain, you enhanced the border control. And why haven't you confirmed with the U.S. forces? And do you think this was problematic? From the U.S., we received the explanation as a result of the vaccination among the U.S. forces and as well as the relaxation of the infection throughout the world, based on the U.S. State Department's policy throughout the world in September 3rd last year, for those who are vaccinated, they exempted them from conducting tests before departure. And given the strong request from the Japan side, from December last year onward, they reintroduced the before departure test. And currently, before departure as well as entry to Japan, they conduct tests to the U.S. forces personnel. Whenever the Japan side measure changes, we made explanation to the U.S. so that the U.S. measure will be consistent with that of Japan. And there has been some insufficiency in securing the consistent measure to be taken by the U.S. side. This is something we should address. And given this reflection on 9th this month, based on the U.S.-Japan Joint Committee statement between two parties, we conducted constructive consultation. And by paying attention to the future infection status in order to resolve the concern of the local people as well as to have the thorough prevention measures, we would like to further enhance the collaboration between Japan and U.S. in health and hygiene matters. Next question, please.
I have a follow-up question. You said might have been insufficient. Can you elaborate on that to the extent possible? The U.S. side border measures were supposed to be consistent and aligned with border measures on the Japanese side. That was insufficient. First of all, pre-departure test after 3rd of September last year, through the request at my level and other levels, was resumed on December 26. But during that period, the pre-departure test was not being performed. And secondly, regarding the isolation period after entry into Japan, in Japan, from October 1st, we had reduced the isolation period to 10 days. But due to the emergence of Omicron, that shorter period was concluded on November the 30th, and the isolation period was prolonged to 14 days. But the U.S. side reduced the isolation period to 10 days from October 1st, but it was only on 20th of December that they brought it back to 14 days. First of all, on insufficiency regarding allowance of spread of infection, prevention of spread of infection, it was on 7th of January that wearing a facial mask was made mandatory in all facilities and areas of the USFJ. So based upon the lessons learned, we will further enhance our measures. Next question, please.
Tanaka-san, please. Gigi Tanaka, Ukraine situation. I have a question to Russia. Economic sanction to Russia. The U.S. and Europe said they would take strong measures if there is a Russian aggression. and this could lead to the deterrence of Russia. But Japan, do you have idea to join hands? As for the action in the event that Russia makes aggression to Ukraine, this is a hypothetical question, so I would like to refrain from answering to that question. But Japan, together with the international society, including G7, we would like to take appropriate measures moving forward. Nobita-san, please.
Nobita of Asahi Newspaper. Ukraine situation. In Ukraine, the recognition regarding the level of tension, for example, between the United States and the EU or Ukraine, which is the actual party, there seems to be some gap. United States says that Russia can invade any time, but is the Japanese government recognition the same as the United States regarding the level of tension? As I said already, at the moment, along the borderline between Ukraine and Russia, tension has been elevated due to the increase of Russian troops. There are actions by relevant countries to engage in diplomatic efforts, but the situation may change quickly any time, which I've already mentioned. So in that sense, we are taking every measure possible to ensure the safety of the Japanese citizens in Ukraine. And yesterday, we've increased the warning level to level 3, which is evacuation recommendation to Kiev and all parts of Ukraine, and to be prepared for a quick change in situation. We are urging the Japanese citizens in Ukraine to use the commercial flights while they are available at the moment to depart the country. So that's where we are. So ban or suspension of travel, I think the Japanese level is the same as other countries. Thank you. Next question.
Soy-san, please. TV Asahi Sawai, border control is my question. Yesterday, Chairman Tokuro of Keidan yesterday said that the Omicron variant is a major variant, and we don't have to close the country anymore because Japan's business is conducted only in Japan. So we should abolish the policy to banning people coming into Japan. In Japan, the Omicron strain is already prevalent, and by the end of February, you have a plan to take stringent measure. And what is your view? So the new entry by foreign nationals to Japan? Yes. By the end of February, including the stoppage of foreign nationals coming to Japan, we would like to maintain the current border control framework. As for the entry with the specific reasons, we would like to apply strict measures, and we would like to take necessary actions based on the national interest and humanitarian perspective. So far, whenever we need humanitarian consideration, given the individual situation, after taking the necessary prevention measures, we allowed people to come into Japan. When family members need to live together, and for those foreign national spouses, given the individual situation, we have been taking appropriate actions. As for the future, given the infection situation in and outside of Japan, relevant ministries and departments are going to take necessary actions.
Next question, please. Endo Niigata Nippo. I have a question on Sado Kinzan Gold Mine. It's less than 1 week until the deadline of submission of the nomination. What is the position of Japan? And at yesterday's budget committee, you said that Japan led the reform of UNESCO on memory of the world. There are those who say that the rule for World Heritage is different from the rules for memory of the world. What is your position? First of all, on the status of consideration. On Sado Kinzan gold mine inscription as World Heritage, what is most effective from such perspective? MEXT and MOFA are considering a comprehensive review on what would be the most effective strategy. And as I commented at the Diet, We have been leading the UNESCO reform, and last year in April, on Memories of the World, our view contributed to the introduction of a complaint system not to proceed with inscription until the difference in opinion between relevant countries is resolved. The Japanese government will continue our comprehensive review, including those various points on what would be the most effective strategy for the inscription of Sado.
Yes, please. Thank you. IWJ Hamamoto is my name. So environmental pollution at the U.S. forces in December 28th in Okinawa Prefecture within the U.S. forces in Uruma, the PFOS was detected at the concentration of 1,660 times beyond the national level. It was reported to the Defense Ministry. However, due to the lack of agreement between the two countries, there was delay in the announcement. There was the environmental supplementary agreement of SOFA, included the information sharing and Japan environmental control standard, on-the-spot procedure, and U.S.-Japan joint meeting consultation. But are they properly exercised? And have there been appropriate explanation as well as compensation to the people in Japan? Japanese government, in order to protect the people and people's life in Japan, I think Japanese government should ask for the drastic change to the U.S. government. But what is your view? As for the serious issues, including PFOS and others, in order to eradicate concerns of people, including Okinawan people, by collaborating with the relevant governments and the U.S. government, we have been taking actions. In 2015, there was environmental supplementary agreement reached, and in June last year, at the military oil storage facility, there was the water flow incident. And the government and relevant local governments and the U.S. side closely cooperated, and based on the supplementary agreement, we had a spot inspection and conducted the sampling test of water there. As to the military oil storage facility in June, the water outage issue, based on the water sample collected, national government, Okinawa Prefecture, and the U.S. Analyzed respectively and shared the information among three parties and made the coordination. As a result, we made an announcement last December. As for the government, in order to respond to the interest of local people, I think it is very important to operate this kind of framework. So in order to make sure that the environmental measures within the facility is effective, we would like to continue our cooperation. Thank you. Any other questions?
Maeda-san? Maeda of Kyoto Press. I have a question on Ambassador Okada's visit to Kabul. It seems that he met with Mr. Hanafi, and had there been exchange of views between Ambassador Okada and the Taliban senior officials regarding the resumption of the embassy? As you said, from 17th of January to the 24th local time, Ambassador Okada of Japan to Afghanistan visited Kabul and conducted working-level consultations with the senior officials of Taliban. Since the exacerbation of the situation in Afghanistan, this is the second time Ambassador Okada visits Kabul since his last visit in November last year. You mentioned the meeting, but at the meeting, yes, the resumption of the Japanese embassy was touched upon, but at the moment, we have no specific plan to reopen the embassy of Japan.
Any other question? We would like to close today's press conference. Thank you very much.